This is Luke Paulson, the Catholic Conservative, and welcome to the news of the week for June 28th, 2025. And if you enjoy these videos, do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. A sudden and unexpected strike. President Donald Trump took out several key sites in Iran for nuclear enrichment. As I mentioned last week, he stopped shy of assassinating the supreme leader of Iran. Either way, he took out potential weapons of mass destruction in less than a day and for a fraction of the cost that it took Bush and Cheney to not do the job. The fact that there were no WMDs in Iraq, and whether there was a risk of nukes by Iran, is another issue. It shows two leadership styles, emphasizing that one was only about making money for the military-industrial complex,
beware the military-industrial complex,
and the other was about getting a job done. There is the risk of retaliation, but I doubt that because Iran is already offering terms of peace. This is what peace through strength looks like. But let us consider what the worst case scenario could have been. Sleeper cells awakening in America. Just stay asleep. There are threats every day that are thwarted by law enforcement. The foiled attack on the Army base in Michigan was one such example. While you and I are going about our lives, men and women are risking their lives to protect us. They are gathering intelligence and stopping these attacks before they happen. Even if Iran does have these sleeper cells, not only would they have already been deployed, but the Trump administration would deal with them. On the other hand, Democrats are too woke to be awake to see this hard work. Now, while the previous administration let in people who were on international terror watch lists, President Trump is the president of law and order. As such, virtually none are slipping through. Democrats want the illegals to get in, and they are willing to risk letting terrorists get in just to win elections. A senator was arrested. Senator Alex Padilla was arrested by officers during Secretary Kristi Noem's press conference. He could have waited until it was time to ask questions. But like most Democrats who have not gotten their way regarding their Trump derangement syndrome, he had to just shout it out. Just like Representative Al Green during President Trump's address to the nation a little while back. Either way, Padilla was arrested and taken outside. He later gave a dramatized version on the Senate floor in which he made himself out as the victim. However, I would like you to consider that the security for both President Trump and his staff needs to be on high alert. Simply put, people have tried to kill President Trump on multiple occasions. Politicians and judges who support his policies are targeted as well. Just look at what happened in Minnesota. Senator Padilla could have just waited to ask the question at the proper time, but instead, he wanted to make a name for himself and for his supporters to see him as a martyr. It worked for them, but not for real Americans. Senator Padilla and his supporters have made it a point that if they can arrest a senator for asking questions, they can arrest anyone. However, the same people who went to the No Kings riot wanted to place people in camps for not taking a certain drug, and others wanted unmasked children taken away from their parents. Speaking of masks, let us go to LA. What is wrong with masks? There are only two reasons that a healthy person would need to wear a mask out in the open. One, the person is concealing their identity because there could be consequences for them. Two, the person is a sheeple who just does whatever the television tells him. Granted, there is the third possibility that a kid is trick-or-treating, but I think that somewhat falls under the first situation. Moving on. Law enforcement is being doxxed for enforcing the law as written. Americans are not being targeted. Illegals are. These people do not have the same rights, and if they broke into any other country, they would have already been deported. Now, to avoid being doxxed, and thus to protect their families, law enforcement officers are wearing masks to stop the photos from being posted online. The only thing scarier than a policeman going into the line of fire is knowing that somehow his family is dragged into it. It can happen at a traffic stop or at a convenience store. Our boys in blue put their lives on the line every day, and the same is true for immigration and customs enforcement. People try to dox the police, and so they protect themselves to protect what matters most. Liberals wear masks so that they can vandalize and not get caught. Or they are trying to protect themselves from the most dangerous virus in the history of humanity with a cloth covering. All this talk about masks is making me think of 2020. As such, let us talk about nursing homes. Nursing homes doomed. Governor Andrew Cuomo is the embodiment of what is wrong with New York as a state. A bloated bureaucracy and a government that has to control everything for reasons. While Governor Cuomo has made a lot of mistakes, just like everywhere else, some problems are caused by the previous administration. Now James O'Keefe with OMG has done it again. He showed that the previous administration passed laws that made it even more difficult for Cuomo to operate. From what I understand, the law in question mandated that certain swaths of money be spent on patient care, rather than building maintenance, even if the building is falling apart. Furthermore, of this patient care, 40% must be face-to-face. From what the undercover reporter was able to discern, all of this was designed to hurt Cuomo. That being said, Cuomo did not make the nursing home situation any better than when he got it. However, this is also proof positive that James O'Keefe will go after anyone. While we are still in New York, let us look at a dangerous nomination. A dangerous nomination. New York is one of the biggest cities in America and the world. It has also become a Democrat wasteland over the years. The main problem with political correctness is that it allows all ideas, except those that they disagree with. Zohran Mamdani is posed to be the first Muslim mayor of New York. This will lead to terrible things. A dangerous faith that does not respect the rights of anyone outside of their faith now has a major foothold in New York. The rest of America could soon follow. In Muslim-majority countries, certain unmentionable crimes are tolerated. As such, let us go to Florida, where those crimes are not tolerated. Florida criminals arrested. Dragon Eye was an operation by the U.S. Marshals in Central Florida to locate 60 critically missing children. Their captors were involved in trafficking, drugs, and child endangerment. Children aged 9 to 17 were rescued from exploitation, and their captors are facing justice. Meanwhile, the FBI arrested 449 predators in 2 operations. 200 children were rescued as a result. None of this would be happening under the previous administration. President Trump is the president of law and order. These children have been rescued and now have a chance at life. And now I take you to Washington, D.C. to talk about the Department of Government Efficiency, MTG and DOGE. After a particularly interesting hearing, in which Democrats were asked if they support the corrupt programs that DOGE uncovered, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene will head a new DOGE House subcommittee to cut waste, while Elon Musk did his absolute best. Judges and Democrats got in his way at every turn. Now, with a subcommittee, I think DOGE can be granted subpoenas, and the subcommittee can compel the heads of these agencies to testify before them. One thing that is on the chopping block is the single most demonic company in America. I am, of course, referring to Planned Parenthood. SCOTUS protects life. Planned Parenthood's so-called clinics are already shutting down since the overturn of the abomination that was Roe v. Wade. Now, if DOGE and Representative Greene can prove that they were using tax dollars illegally, even more clinics and possibly the whole business could shut down. And without their lobbying power, other smaller abortion mills could be dismantled as well. Hallelujah. 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 Let us not forget that this company was founded by the eugenicist Margaret Sanger, who wanted to expunge the world of the Negro population. However, the Supreme Court has issued what may be another death blow to Planned Parenthood. The court ruled in favor of a South Carolina law that blocks Medicaid funding to Planned Parenthood. This means that the abortion mill can no longer get large swaths of tax dollars. If a father decides that he does not want the responsibility of being a father, he is called a deadbeat, and rightly so. If a mother decides that she does not want the responsibility of being a mother, she is called pro-choice. This really is sad and pathetic. At the same time, the nation's highest court also weighed in on the immigration issue. From what I can tell, while they did not rule birthright citizenship illegal, they have stayed multiple federal court orders to stop the lawful deportation of illegals. In other words, the illegals are in fact going home. With the blessing of 6 of the 9 justices, a very narrow margin of victory, but victory nonetheless. These justices came about because of President Trump. As such, let us talk about something that he said, a sudden vulgarity. President Trump has, for the most part, been incredibly level-headed about the present Iranian situation. However, when Israel bombed Iran after America's attack, he wasn't a word peeved. This could make the peace deal that he has been working on impossible. I am still not sure why we are involved directly, as neither Ukraine nor Israel is America's concern. If you listen to PragerU or the Daily Wire, you might say that they are a buffer to keep these dangerous powers from invading the rest of the world. By that standard, you could justify not only anything that Israel does, but anything that Ukraine does, even if the people have to be kidnapped to fight that war. You could even defend a permanent military presence in South Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. Either way, as a result of Israel's latest attack, President Trump let a vulgarity slip. Naturally, the fake news is running with the story of one little word, rather than what he was talking about in context. It is what they do. So, while we are on the topic of President Trump, let us talk about one of the biggest moves of his career, paying their fair share. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization has been incredibly unfair to America. All of the member nations are supposed to pay 5% of their GDP towards the alliance. However, for the most part, America has been footing the bill as the rest of these countries do not pay their dues. Let us think about this logically. NATO is for all intents and purposes designed so that if any one of the member nations goes to war, all of the other member nations rush to their defense. This is the same sort of entangling alliance that helped lead to World War I, but I digress. If these nations are not paying money into the alliance, why would they get the protection? Now, thanks to President Trump, all of the nations are paying at least 5% of their GDP towards the alliance. This still allows the poorer nations to pay less and the richer nations to pay more. Everyone wins, including America. I still say that these entangling alliances will be our undoing. But while we are entangled, we may as well not be footing the whole bill.
Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion. And do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. But before you go, on the left I have last week's video, but you may also enjoy the video on the right.